Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carlo Prusa MMA. Today, I am with UFC veteran. He is Boston Strong. He is Mr. Charles Rosa, and he's decided to take the gloves off. He's going to try out some Gamebred Bareknuckle MMA, taking on another Bostonian in Mr. Peter Barrett, November 15th, Biloxi, Mississippi. A lot of fireworks with this one. A lot of people maybe saying fight of the night for this one. You know, Charles, man, you've been doing this for quite a while now. You found the biggest promotion in the world, yet you decided to take the gloves off. What was some of the reasons why you want to try out this whole bare knuckle phenomenon?
Man, it was a good opportunity. I could have, fought Pete many other places, possibly in the UFC at some point. I have victories over all the best Boston guys, Manny Bermudez, Sean Soriano, Kyle Bochniak. I've beaten the best of the best. I just beat Josh Harvey from Maine. So, at this point, I feel like, I'm the top fighter from New England and I want to represent, where I'm from. And I also, I'm one of the best fighters in the world. Like any of my losses in the top are against top 10 guys in the UFC. So, I've never been put away, never been finished, and I feel like it's a good time to go at it with Pete. It was a good, I got a call from Dean Toole, good opportunity, man, and I was excited to take it. When he told me it was bare knuckle, it didn't really make too much of a difference because I think I used a lot of elbows, I used a lot of clinch, I used a lot of knees, and my hands have always been pretty good after fights. Like most people usually complain about their hands and stuff, but my hands are pretty strong, so I think I'll be good.
You know, you've been doing this for quite a while now. You fought some of the toughest guys in the world, but what made you go this route? Why did you get into combat sports?
Why did I get into combat sports or bare knuckle?
The combat sports. Why did you start mixed martial arts?
Man, I mean, it's a long story, but I guess I could give you the quick part of it. I grew up in Boston, New England, um, playing sports since I was a little kid. Since I could walk, I could ice skate, and I played hockey since I was 3 years old. I kind of watched my older brothers, Dominic and Vincent. I watched them play hockey and stuff, and I fell in love with it, and it was my favorite thing. But the only problem is my best attribute in hockey was always the hockey fights, is getting in the fights and hitting people and checking them and stuff. So that was pretty much my favorite part of hockey, was the fighting aspect of it. So I just kind of, I grew up in a fight family too. My uncle Tom the Bomb Rose is a boxer. My dad, fought for years. My grandfather Dominic Rosa was the Navy boxing champion. So fighting is in my DNA. And growing up in a household with four brothers, we, and a sister, my brothers, we'd always just be, fighting each other and stuff like that. They'd bring their friends over. We'd have, trampoline wars and, locker boxing and hockey where we put the gloves and the headgear on. And man, fighting was just always something that I loved and was attracted to. And, long story short is I moved to South Florida after I graduated from culinary school and college. And, I was looking for some other hobby because I kind of was a little bit, had a lot going on. Lost my two older brothers to drug overdoses, and at that time I was mentally struggling like really bad, and I was looking for kind of a new hobby, something to kind of get my mind off of it. And I walked into what I thought was a boxing gym because my grandfather and my uncle Tommy were boxers. Just kind of some, find a different hobby, and it was actually American Top Team, a mixed martial arts gym. I had no idea what it was. I thought it was boxing because they were boxing when I went there, but I guess it was kickboxing and MMA and all this stuff. And man, day one I fell in love with it. The first day I walked in the gym, that's where I met Charles McCarthy, and I met him at his American Top Team gym in Boca Raton, Florida. Just riding my bike at that time. For the first 3 years I lived in South Florida, I only had a bicycle, so kind of just went in that gym, just told him I wanted to fight, and that's kind of the first day I went into class. I'm not sure. Do you know who Cole Miller is?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Cole Miller. He was actually teaching the class. I had no idea who he was at that time. He was a top 10 UFC lightweight fighting, and I went into the class and I was like, "Hey, I want to do the class." So I borrowed a pair of gloves, but borrowed bare hand wraps, and did the class, and they did the whole class. And at the end, there was the sparring part of it, and I didn't really have a partner at the end because everybody was partnered up. And he's like, "Hey, it's your first day, like sit it out. You don't have a partner." So then Cole's hitting the bag, and I'm like, felt like I was missing out on the best part of the training session, the sparring. I did the whole class, and I came there to fight. Like I thought I was gonna get to fight somebody. I didn't really know, and Cole was hitting the bag, and he was the only one without a partner, but he was a coach. But I didn't really know the rules of the etiquette of being on the mats. And I was like, "Yo, what about you? You want to spar?" And he kind of ignored me, kept hitting the bag. And I said, "Was that a no?" And he goes, "You want to spar me?" And I go, "Yeah, I just asked you." And he's like, "All right, let's go." And I remember I went at it for like 3 or 4 rounds with him, just with boxing gloves, no mouthpiece, just going at it. And I remember like leaving there being like, man, that skinny kid was tough, dude. Like, and but right before I left, the class was over. Coach Charles McCarthy was the head of the gym. He wasn't running the class, but he was in his little office in the back, managing the gym. He's like, he's like, man, where did you train at before? And I'm like, I never trained anywhere. He's like, you never fought before? I was like, no, I mean, I did karate when I was a kid, and I've gotten a lot of hockey fights and a lot of street fights growing up in Boston, but I never had any formal training. And he's like, man, I'm not just spinning your wheels. Like, you really could be good at this. That kid you just went against is Cole Miller. He's a top 10 fighter in the UFC in the world right now. And you really hung in there with him. Like, I'm not just spinning your wheels, but I really think you could do something with this. And I thought he was just messing with, like, trying to get me to sign the membership. But man, the rest is history. I went home, I Googled Cole Miller, saw that he was a UFC fighter, and that was his career, and he was making money off it, man. And ever since then, man, a light bulb went off and haven't stopped since. 14 fights, 14 UFC fights later, 50 fights later, I'm here, taking my first bare knuckle fight for Gamebred.
I think so many people watch mixed martial arts in this day and age. The sport has grown so much. 20, 25 years ago, it's very culturally unaccepted. Yet people call it human cockfighting. It was kind of like the Wild Wild West. But even 15 to 20 years ago, man, some of these regional promotions were still kind of crazy. When you first came up, do you have any stories of maybe finding at like bowling alleys or outside or bars, mystery opponents? You got anything wild?
Yeah, I got a few of them, but well, I got two. I got two of my favorite. Well, I got two. I got one story. You're gonna have to pick because it'll only take a couple minutes each. But
Whatever. Figure
I got
favorite.
one from I got one from high school when I had to transfer schools from Boston to from Massachusetts school to New Hampshire school, and it was my first day of my new school. That's one story. I got another story. When I got my bicycle stolen in Delray Beach, Florida, when I got out of work late one night because I didn't have a car at the time. So my
Those
bicycle
are
was
the
basically
bicycle
my
stories.
car. And then the last one, and the last one was, having a fight for, or my opponent didn't show up at an amateur fight venue. It was like my third or fourth fight. I ended up another guy who was a light heavyweight at 205, was like juiced to the gills, like big bodybuilder kid, didn't have an opponent. I fought like 4 weight classes up to fight him for a kickboxing match that I won. So which one you want to hear?
Pick your favorite one, man. Pick the
All
funniest.
right, no, I like the bicycle story because that was probably one of the hardest times of my life. At that time, I just moved to South Florida from Boston. I graduated, culinary school by the skin of my teeth, luckily, and that was, shortly before that, I lost my two older brothers when I was 17. And the following year, when I was 18, I lost my two older brothers to drug overdoses. So, I was able to, go to culinary school after that and kind of go to college and kind of somehow get through it and get a degree. But after that, I kind of was lost. I never really went to therapy or nothing or dealt with like the problems of losing it. Like it was just something that was really tough for me. So I feel like I needed a location change, like a geological change. So a geographic change, whatever you call it. And I moved to South Florida. I had a couple cousins living here, and there was a couple job opportunities. This one place, Cut 432, that I worked at. It's on Atlantic Avenue. Ended up working there for 10 years. But my life basically was when I got to South Florida, I went, first couple days, got a job at this nice restaurant on the Ave. And every day I rode my bike to work. I'd work, probably 50, 60 hours a week, from probably about 2 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night, and sometimes on the weekends later to 1 in the morning because of the restaurant business, being a chef. Um, but I kind of felt like I just, was kind of missing, some, it was part of my life, so here's where the story comes in. Basically, my point is it was very difficult. I was working 60 hours a week. I was just starting to train at the time. So it was like my first couple months of training. Maybe I was starting to get my first amateur fight. And my bicycle was my only means of transportation at the time. So, Atlantic Avenue is a nice place, but towards the end of it, a little bit was the hood. You know what I'm saying? So, it's like the nice boardwalk, but when you get past a certain light, at that point, it's the ghetto. I got out of work late one night after working in a long, long week, and I was supposed to have training the next morning. And I get out of work, and my bike is gone. I had it locked up to the back, and someone cut the lock, took my bike. And for me, that's like the equivalent now if you stole my car, maybe worse because I really had no money at the time. So that was like everything I had was my bicycle. It was literally all I had. And a couple days before that, a kid gave me a light to put on my bike. So I, interesting, will play later in the story. So get out of work, my bike's gone. I'm like, fuck, man, let's go. Like I'm walking down and I'm like, where could it be? I just the back of my head, I'm like, man, I'm just gonna go, take the long road home. I just walked home. I was pissed. I was walking through the hood, like, the dude in training day. I don't know if you've seen that section where you're just walking through the hood. I was pissed, man. Had my backpack on. And sure enough, I look across the street and I see my bike riding by, and I could see the flash of the light. It was nighttime, it was late at night, and it was in the hood too. And I could just see the pattern of the light, and I recognized it because the kid gave me the bicycle light a couple days before. And I'm like, dude, that's my bike. And I ran across the street, and I'm like, hey, that's my bike. And the kid's like, fuck you, white boy. And I'm like, listen, man, I'm like, it's my bike. It's not yours. You got two ways. I'm either gonna take it from you, or I'm gonna whoop your. Either you can give it back to me, or I'm gonna whoop your ass. And he's like, the fuck you say? And then he just basically, I. I tried to just grab the bike and just take it from him, but he wasn't letting that happen. So I started tug of warring for the bicycle in the middle of the street from my bike to try to cause some commotion. So maybe he would just run off because obviously he knew he stole it, but he wasn't having it. And as that's happening, all the kids from the ghetto started kind of like creeping out of the woodwork. It was like dark, and I could just see like guys coming in and closing in on me. It must have been all of his friends. Later to find out, like after I talked to the police, they were from a gang, like big gang members, and they were coming around. And I just had a sixth sense, man. Like I've been in some tough situations and places in my life, so I feel like I can read the room pretty well. And I knew something really bad was about to happen. Like a moment of clarity just struck me, and like I felt like time stopped. I'm like, man, I'm gonna get shot or stabbed or jumped or something bad's gonna happen, but I'm not leaving without my bicycle. So I just kind of said really loud to the kid. I was like, yo, me and you right now fight for the bike. Winner takes it home. Because I knew all the kids would respect it, and they did. They just went, oh, and they kind of just like backed up a little bit and gave us some space. And they're like, yo, run that, dude, let's go. And they said to the kid, and I was just by myself, and I'm like, all right, let's run it. Like I'm fighting for my bike right now, and at least hopefully nobody jumps in. But I felt like they gave me I got their respect from saying that. So the kid, puts the bike down to the side, takes his shirt off, and I just fucking start slugging it out with him. He had like long, he basically looked like Little Wayne with like tattoos with no shirt on, and man, he had long dreads. And man, he was tough. He was tougher than most of my amateur fights, man. Like this kid was tough, man. I went at it with him for about a solid minute straight, like just punching as hard as I could. I threw a couple leg kicks in there, and seemed pretty close. But at the end, I finally, it was a little street fight, and so I grabbed him by his dreadlocks, boom, boom, gave him a couple big uppercuts, and right as he hit the ground, and I went to go jump on him, I saw the police sirens like come back around, and and basically I just backed up, put my hands up. He was bleeding, and he got up, but he got up in a rage, and he started attacking the police officers. So the police whooped his ass worse than I did, threw him in the cop car, and I'm sitting there and they're like, what's going on? I'm like, man, he tried to steal my bike, like, and they're like, get over there, sit down, like, and everybody, like, all the gangsters over in the corner, like, we're gonna fucking kill you, white boy, you better not come in this hood again. And I'm sitting there like, officer, you gonna let them talk to me like that? He goes, you shut up right there before you get us all killed. And I was like, oof, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So the cops drove me home. They drove him off in the police car, and they said the next day, you can come back and pick up your bike at the police station if it's yours. And I'm like, all right. So I come back the next day at the police station, and I'm like, hey, I'm with my bike. And he's like, man, that kid that you fought, he goes, you're that stupid kid from last night. I go, excuse me? And he goes, well, we heard you had to fight to get your bike back last night. And I go, yeah, well, are you gonna give it to me? He goes, that kid was a member of one of the major gangs here in West Palm Beach, and he we're actually filming an episode of Gangland right now, and this is one of the worst sections of the world. You're lucky you're not shot and killed. And I was like, oh man, I didn't know that. I just was trying to get my bike back. And he goes, well, it was really stupid what you did. And I go, well, on it. I go, well, officer, what would you have done? He goes, I would have just walked away. And I go, well, that's the difference between me and you. So that's is what it is. But that's the story of my bicycle. I got the bike back, and I rode it. I got it back, and it got stolen many times after that. And I got it back a few times in different situations, but nothing quite like that.
I think everyone should take note here. Charles Rosa got a couple bare knuckle contests already under his belt.
Yeah.
Charles, so many people watch mixed martial arts in this day and age. They look at the big guys, they look at the Usmans, the McGregors, the Joneses, and they're like, what a wonderful life it is to be a mixed martial artist. Wow, this is the greatest thing ever. Little do they know, being a mixed martial artist has a lot of sacrifices, has a lot of highs, has a lot of lows to it. When you have to battle it out on the regional scene just to get to the biggest shows, I'm convinced that is one of the toughest things anyone can do in the world. The money isn't great, a lot of sacrifices. A lot of guys have 9-to-5 jobs, kids, wife, have to pay to train, have to do this day in and day out. And, when you make to the bigger shows, when you do the bare knuckles, the UFCs, yes, the money gets a lot better, but the sacrifices, they still exist. You've been doing this for a very long time. What's made you keep kicking and punching throughout these years, my friend?
Man, nothing's changed. I mean, the real reason I do this sport is because I love it, and I always tell that to aspiring fighters. I teach over at American Combat Gym. We have an MMA program. I teach a lot of amateurs. My little brother actually is 4-0 now. I always think of him as an amateur because he just went 4-0 in the last 2 months. He just won his first 4 pro fights. Lucas, the King of Monsters, Rosa, my little brother, and man, like, I do this because I love it, and I tell these guys too. I'm like, if you don't love this, go do something else, man. Like, you're not doing this for the money. If I was fortunate enough to be able to make it to the highest level, fighting in front of sold out crowds, winning $50,000 performance, the nice bonuses, in the UFC, earning my money. But there's definitely you have to do it because you love it. It's not necessarily to, so that's why I do it. I do this because I love it. I do it every day. I wake up. I'm grateful to be healthy. Luckily, I'm 38 years old, but my body, I feel brand new. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I still think I look good. I still get, my genes are good. I feel like I was a late bloomer when I was a kid. So I feel like I'm in the body of like a 28-year-old. I don't feel like I've lost a step. I feel like I'm at the best I've ever been. Like, I feel like I'm better now than when I was fighting in the UFC. And, I think I would bet $1 million that myself right now would have beat myself 10 years ago when I was 28 years old fighting the number 8 guy in the world, Dennis Seaver. And it's difficult for me not fighting the fights in the UFC, knowing that I'm the best I've ever been, not fighting the best guys. But, I get the opportunity to fight a guy like Pete Barrett, one of the top guys. And, I'm on a 4-fight win streak, just defended my world championship belt and New England for CES. And man, I'm excited to get back in the cage.
You remember where you were when you got the phone call that you were signed to the UFC?
Yes, I do. I was in a Walmart parking lot, and I was with my buddy Sam Russell, who's my strength and conditioning coach still to this day, um, over at his gym at Raw Fitness. And I got the phone call, and saying that there was an opportunity for me to fight in the UFC. And actually, you know what? That's actually not accurate. When I got my phone call to fight Dennis, because that was like the first time the UFC called me to was interested, but the first time that I got the call that I knew I was fighting in the UFC was when I landed, and I was going to Holland to a Dutch kickboxing gym called Majiro Gym in Amsterdam. Some of the greats came out of there: Remy Bajanski, Rob Kamen. I'm sure you've heard of those Dutch kickboxing legends. So I took a trip to Holland and Amsterdam to go train Dutch kickboxing at this legendary gym. And I was so excited, man. Like, it was, it's like kind of going to Thailand. Like, if you're a Muay Thai guy, like, for me, I was more of a Dutch kickboxing fan. And I went over there, and I was on a 8-hour flight from, Boston to Amsterdam. And when I landed, they told me my coach, the coach, Stefan Birkenpass from the gym, picked me up at the airport, and he goes, "Oh, you're excited?" And I go, "Excited." He goes, "You didn't hear the news? You got the UFC call." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I didn't even know that I was getting. I didn't find out till I landed that the guy took the fight." So it was, first Dennis Seaver. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely.
And I took it on 5 days' notice, and I had to lose 35 pounds to my UFC debut, which I ended up getting fight of the night, which was pretty special. But in Stockholm, Sweden versus Dennis Seaver.
No, that's pretty amazing. Definitely a moment that you'll remember for the rest of your life. Let's turn things over to the gloves off now. Let's get into the fight. You're taking on Slippery Pete Barrett, another guy from Boston. Overall, what do you think of him as an opponent?
Man, I think he's a formidable, tough opponent. He's one of the top guys, in the world right now. unsigned from the big show, and now he gets to come to a big show and put on actually take off the gloves with the top guy in the world, and I'm excited to welcome him. It's both of our first bare knuckle, well, not my first bare knuckle fight, but my first sanctioned bare knuckle fight, and I'm happy to put on the dance. I know he's a tough, rugged, strong kid, and he's going to be coming there to fight, but he's going to find out that there's levels to this, and it's part of the game. Like, you go in there and there's levels to this game, and he's going to find out November 15th in Mississippi.
What really intrigues me about this contest is both of you guys fight at a very high pace. Both of you guys like to push forward. Could you see this being a 3-round dogfight?
I mean, I could see it if he can take the punishment, he can take the damage, and he can, his submission defense is top tier. I mean, I have so many weapons. I knocked my last guy out in the first round. I got, in the first 3 minutes of the fight, got one of my best knockouts in my whole career. My hands are as sharp as they've ever been. I'm training kickboxing with Roger Crawl at MMA Science, and he's one of the top, kickboxing coaches in the planet right now. He's Amanda Nunes' coach, and she's one of the best female kickboxers in the world. And man, it's yeah, man, that's if his chin can take the punches, he can last 3 rounds. But I don't think that's gonna be possible, because then once he starts taking the damage, he's gonna shoot in on me and he's gonna get choked unconscious. So, um, you know. It doesn't matter how tough you are. Tough mans can't last from chokes either. So it's either gonna get choked out or knocked out. So if his chin is durable and strong enough, and he can take the damage, then you might be fortunate enough to see a 3-round beating of him.
I think a lot of the casual fans, have people who are watching this are thinking bare knuckle, oh, wow, the hands, knockouts, crazy. But really, when you look at bare knuckle, it really favors the chokes. It favors the grappling. That stuff gets so much harder to defend with the gloves off. Is that something that appeals you to this platform?
Man, I go into every fight. Like, I'm going there to try to knock the guy's head off and kill him. A lot of people have strategy. They're like, oh, I'm gonna work my takedown defense. I'm gonna work my takedown offense. Anytime, the experience being a seasoned veteran at this point is, I've realized that those game plans usually never work. They always go out the window. You think this guy's gonna grapple with you, and he ends up being striking with you, and it just gets too much in your head. But I've always done the best, and I've done it in my last 4 fights. I don't even watch video of the guy. I said, you know what, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna fight my ass off. I'm gonna go there and just like I used to do when I was an amateur. I was the top #1 amateur in the country. I had, 20 wins as an amateur fighter, and I would just literally just go in there and just fight my heart out. And that's always when I've had the most success. And that's what I'm going to do in this fight. And whatever opportunity comes, I'm taking it. But like I said, I'm going in there, kill or be killed. Like, I'm going out swinging. I'm going out swinging. And if he ends up having to shoot on me or try to take me down, then he's gonna pay for that also. But as far as strategy, I mean, I go there and keep it on the feet. You've seen all my UFC fights. I fought in the best of the best strikers. Yair Rodriguez, um, Shane Burgos. I fought all the Nate, whatever his name is, dude. Nate, the last kid I just fought.
Manners?
Nathaniel Wood. I'm sorry, Nathaniel Wood. I was saying Nate, but Nathaniel Wood. These are the top strikers in the planet Earth, man. And I've been in there and I stood up with all three of them, and none of them were able to put me away. And I think that I'm the best, the best I've ever been. And my striking's only improved. I've gotten so much better. Made trips to Thailand, like I said, kickboxing in Holland. Boxing with John David Jackson, my boxing coach, Mickey Ward. Mickey Ward is a legend to me. He's one of my boxing coaches from Boston that I've been able to put a lot of work into, and somebody that I look up to and respect a lot. And he had the greatest war of any fight in history against Ettore Gatti. And I think he did that when he was my age. He was 37, 38 years old when he fought Ettore Gatti in the greatest fight, fight in boxing history.
One thing that's really interesting about this promotion is the fact that it's new. They've only been doing it for a couple years. Every single show, it's getting bigger and bigger. And now you're starting to see guys who are slowly looking at guys who could be the face of this company. Randy Costa, looking at his last fight, look what he's fighting for the belt now. Yeah, that's a guy who could really have his own here and be a big name. Do you feel that opportunity goes for you as well? Do you feel like you could eventually grow here, maybe become one of the faces of this organization?
No, 1,000%. That's why I took this fight. I mean, they take care of us the best they can with the funds, but I think, I'm fighting on this show because of the platform. I could have fought this fight in another regional show against the same guy and probably done decently as far as the pay goes, but this opportunity, this platform is a big part of the reason that I'm taking this fight. Is the whole world is going to get to see me knock this kid out come November 15th.
If they were to do theme music for this card, I think they'd have to go shout out to Boston because we got 4 guys from Boston fighting
Yeah.
on the card. You, Pete, Saul Almeida, Randy Costa. Is that pretty cool to have a lot of
No, I think
Boston
it's
fighters?
awesome. I think they got to make George Masvidal won the BMF belt. They should have the baddest motherfucker from Boston belt. So that's really what everybody from Boston knows. What's really on the line for this fight is who's the baddest man from Boston, man. Like we got all these guys on there, but they've seen my career, they've seen what I've done, and Pete knows. He's going around. I saw a couple of interviews saying he's the king of Boston. He's gonna kick my ass and he's doing all this stuff, and like, yeah, he can talk shit, he can sell the fight, but he knows when he goes to bed at night, and before he goes to bed and shuts his eyes, he knows what I'm doing. I'm training, and he knows I'm one of the baddest fucking fuckers on the planet, and I can beat anybody on any given night, and especially somebody that's not as good as me and as skilled as me. And he's gonna find out. He's gonna find out November 15th. He can keep running his mouth, but I'm gonna wire it shut come November 15th. So you better be ready.
All right, since we're on this Boston topic, I want a Mount Rushmore, 4 greatest Boston athletes.
4 greatest Boston athletes. Well, 100% number 1, Tom Brady. No doubt about that. I would say number 2 would be Ray Bork for the Boston Bruins. Larry Bird. Trying to pick one from every sport to be fair. And then as far as I would think baseball, but I'm just going to have to go another. I like those 3: Larry Bird, Tom Brady, Ray Bork. Those are my 3. 33, number 12, and 77.
There you go. I think that is an absolutely great pick. People from Boston, they love fighting. Obviously, football's huge there. Basketball's big there. Hockey's huge there. But it's something about fighting that just makes Bostonians go absolutely crazy. What is it, man? Is fighting just part of the culture of living in that area of the world?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what it is, man. I think just growing up, I grew up. I feel like just different than some people. I grew up. We have to shovel the snow out of the driveway. I think people just aren't as miserable, and they're a little bit more miserable when it comes to the weather and the climate sometimes. And there, because everybody in Florida, they're so nice, man. I mean, like everybody's happy, they're smiling. I go back home, man. Everyone's like walking around like pissed off, and I'm not really sure what it is, man. But I think it's just something in our DNA. We got a lot of pride. I think the answer to the question is we got a lot of pride. We got a lot of pride in where we're from, who we represent, and we're not willing to break that pride for anything. So sometimes it leads to, when someone tries to hurt your pride, what do? You fight them, and that's it. So I think that's a big part of it, and we stand up for what we believe in, and we're a strong city. So I think that's probably what it is. It comes down to pride, man. We're that's what it is.
Obviously your nickname Boston Strong was a big part of that, the events that happened in Boston 10, 11 years ago.
Nah, man. The way I got my nickname Boston Strong is, I definitely obviously support everything with the city, but my nickname used to be Rapadinho, and it would meant and the Brazilians, all the black belt, my coaches from American Top Team, all the Brazilians, jiu-jitsu guys would call me Rapadinho because of my pace. Like nobody could keep my pace in jiu-jitsu. Like I was like a blue belt, tapping out some of the best black belts in the world just because of the pace I keep. I would just be submission, 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 just continuously attacking. I mean, I think I learned the skills from my coach, Charles Chainsaw McCarthy, because he taught me a really good submissions, but just the pace that I kept. I was Rapadinho was my nickname. But what ended up happening is once I got to the UFC, my coach was like, Charles, you're American, man. Let's represent some American. And I had so many submissions and chokeouts from my fight. They started calling me the Boston Strangler. So for like 2 fights, I was the boss. And I don't just to be clear, like I don't give myself these nicknames. I'm not like, oh, you're gonna call me this. Like nicknames are usually given to you from your fight style and how you fight. So after I won like 4 fights by submission, like by chokes in us, the local show in CES in Providence, Rhode Island, um, I got like 4 like Darce's Anacondas, all proving necktie victory. Like they started calling me the Boston Strangler. So that was like a cool name. When I got to the UFC, my first UFC fight that I took on 5 days' notice against Dennis Seaver, I went to the Stockholm, Sweden. I went in there, and told him my nickname was Boston Strangler, and my manager was Charles McCarthy at the time, and he's like, "Hey Charles, I really don't like that nickname because I go to a lot of children's hospitals, I do a lot of charity work and help because I guess he was like a murderer or something, the Boston Strangler." And I was like, "Dude, like, so what's up? Like, well, we have to change your name again because they don't want to put Boston Strangler in Stockholm on the jumbotron." And I was like, "Well, what's the solution, dude? Like, I'm fighting, like, I'm cutting weight. Like, what do I want me to do?" And he's like, "We're gonna change it to Boston Strong." I said, "I love it. I mean, it's what I stand up in." I think that was before all the Boston bombing stuff happened. So, um, yeah, I think that's how I got my nickname.
Before I let you go here, I'd be crazy if I don't bring this up. So one thing I think is so cool of you, you're a chef. Like you've done the whole culinary school thing.
Yeah,
And I think you're the first UFC fighter who's like a legit professional chef. It also fights. I don't think we could think of any more of those. How did that all start, man? Was that the first love? Was cooking your first true love?
yeah, absolutely, man. Like the cool thing I've done with my life is that cooking was was always my passion in the beginning, and then fighting was my hobby when I first started as an amateur. But I've been able to change that from turning my hobby into something I love. And I love cooking. I grew up in a large Italian family. I had five brothers and sisters and a huge family. My mom and dad each, my dad's side, my grandfather was right from Italy. And I always grew up as a little kid rolling meatballs, helping my dad in the kitchen, cooking, making chicken cutlets, like all I love food, huge passion for food. I always love to eat. My grandfather would say we eat with a lot of gusto, and I just love food. I love food. And that's actually how I got into culinary school, because that's I didn't know what else I wanted to do. I said I wanted to play hockey in the NHL for the Bruins, and the guidance counselor was like, "No, you got to do something else." And luckily I went to culinary school, and I my passion and love for it grew even more. So cooking's something I've done since I was a little kid, and I've always loved it. Have a huge passion for it, and I continue to do it. That's one thing you do every day. You cook and you eat, and it's really nice preparing my own meals and cooking. It's life is good when you know how to cook.
Having that culinary background, does that make weight cutting and dieting a lot easier?
Yes, a lot easier. People don't realize the things that you can eat. They think that you have to starve yourself, and I could get into a whole thing and about nutrition. I helped with the nutrition of a bunch of UFC fighters at the time. I was a chef for Rory McDonald when he first was fighting BJ Penn back in the day. I got some cool opportunities to be a chef, but after you start fighting so much, my real passion was fighting. So it kind of had to, you can't be like 50% fighter, 50% cook. I had to go all in and jump in and put all my chips in and fighting, but still something I love, something I did for a long time, and I continue to do and help a lot of fighters with their diet, nutrition, and teaching guys how to cook. People don't know, like, you can put lemon on your food, you can put peppers, you can put as, and eat as much vegetables and things as you want, and they think that fat's bad for your bacon. If you get the right bacon, it's real bacon. Like, you can eat stuff that people don't realize, and it's just knowledge. So I wish a lot of people have had the idea, and I'm talking about. I just need someone to help me a little bit with it, because I'm obviously focused on fighting. Is made in like a fighter's nutritional cookbook for fighters. There's a guy, Dr. Gelb, who's done a couple surgeries in my life, and kind of a mentor of mine, really good guy. And he keeps telling me, he's like, "Charles, we got to get this book out, man, so we can start, like, you can help a lot of people." And I got some ideas, but we're both busy, and I think once things slow down with my career, then I'll be able to get to the next chapter of it, and hopefully that'll be in the cards.
I think so many people love fighting. When I talk to UFC guys, I talk to mixed martial artists, they love it. It's a passion for them. It's hard for them to give them up. But do you feel like it's important to recognize, you only have a small portion to fight of your life? Is it important for all fighters to recognize, you need to start thinking of life outside of fighting?
Depends who you are. I don't know. I mean, my uncle Tom the Bomb Rosa, he's 55 years old, and he just won the Masters championship. It's not how he makes a living anymore, but you look at Mike Tyson still fighting. So depends where you put yourself. If you're a journeyman fighter that you just think that you're doing this, I mean, I love this, so it doesn't matter if I'm getting paid $1 million for a fight, or if I'm getting paid nothing. Like, I fought 50 fights for it. I mean, yeah, I have a career, and I have bills to pay and family to feed and stuff like that, but it's this is what I love to do. So I'm gonna do it until I can't do it anymore. I mean, I love this sport and I love it, and I'm still the best I can be. And a lot of people care about me. They don't want, if you see you're taking a lot of damage, you're getting hit in the head a lot. But I think I fight pretty strategically and smart, and I train smart. Like, I've changed my training. I used to be at American Top Team every day, sparring rounds with George Masvidal, Dustin Poirier, the best fighters in the planet every day, putting in rounds. And I did that for 10 years. But once I realized that your body, you get to a certain age, you're like, well, is this helping me? Is this detrimental? Is this making me worse as a fighter or better? So I feel like that was necessary when I was in my 20s to put in the work and the rounds like that. But now, man, it's just about staying healthy and being safe and just helping other people. And that's what I focus on. Of course, I'm focused on myself right now, big fight. But like I said, I do this because I love it, and I'm the best I've ever been. I am the easily the best I've ever been in my entire career. I'm the strongest, the fastest. I'm the most on my diet, the most regimented, and I have the most knowledge. I mean, that's why you see all these UFC fighters and these top level fighters. They're the best at the latest in their career because until their body starts breaking down. But as far as myself, like, I feel like I'm in top shape, and I feel like I have the most knowledge I've had my whole career, and I'm more motivated than ever. So,
All right, Charles, last question for you, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome when you take on Slippery Pete Barrett November 15th, Biloxi, Mississippi at Gamebred FC 8?
just like my last opponent, a first round knockout, man. I had found that shin, knock him out, put him to sleep, go home with 2 checks. So I'm excited. Everyone tune in November 15th. Get your boots ready. We fighting bare knuckle in Mississippi. I'm gonna barbecue that son of a bitch.
Absolutely, Charles. I was super excited when I saw your name get put on this card, man. Guy that I've been watching for a very long time. I think you're perfect for bare knuckle. Any chance maybe the Boston Bruins jersey makes an appearance in Biloxi, Mississippi?
Hey, you might see it, man. You might see me walk out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I definitely, that's something that I can bring back. I mean, I was able to be fortunate enough to be fighting in the UFC when I got to walk out at the Boston Garden in my Boston Bruins jersey. The fans went crazy. I played the song they play when the Bruins score a goal, and it was like the most epic moment of my life. And I even got to meet all the Boston Bruins after because they saw me rocking that jersey. Like, it just was the best thing ever. Obviously, they changed the rules, and I didn't get to do that for years, but you might see a reappearance of that jersey to show them what's up.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your night to chat with me, my friend.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for having me on, and definitely, are you going to be there November 15th?
Absolutely, man. I'm
Awesome,
already
man. I look forward
booked
to
my
meeting you in
plane
person.
ticket. Yes, absolutely. We will do one. But that's it for us tonight. That is Mr. Charles Boston Strong Rosa. I'm the fight doctor, Carl Prusa. Stick around, fight fans.